Evening guys, it's time for some more development, and tonight we're going to be working on some graphs, Kantan graphs. Hey Jamie, how are you mate? So from earlier when we didn't have a clue what we're doing, we just did a little bit of reading up, checked a few things, and we now have a functional graph. Now it is in its early stages, I must admit, but let's have a look. Now we do get a few errors on it which I'm going to end up fixing, but in the meantime let's have a look at our graph. So we're going to join up our miner so it can actually mine. And there we go. And now if we hit the G, we apparently don't have anything, which is a bit weird. So we are getting something somewhere. And our graph has went a little bit haywire. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to do it again. And then what we'll do is we'll add some workers so that we actually get some values. And this was working just a little while ago. Now it's obviously doing something because the scale is changing, but for some reason our other stuff isn't. Okay, so it appears to me that this isn't working right. So on the X, okay, whatever. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. Right, there's a lot of errors here at the moment, and I'm thinking it's because we are trying to access a widget that doesn't exist yet. That's okay. Right. So what we're basically going to do here is we're going to get this, right? And we're going to say is valid, okay? And if it is valid, we're going to add to the data point. If not, we're not. Now, what I did earlier was I changed the graph in the designer to not do the markings. Okay, so we need the markings. And that should give us the value we want. Now, as I said to you, we're going to work on this tonight, right? because it's not exactly how I want it yet, that's for sure. Okay, but it's not 100 miles away. So the first thing is to make sure the graph's working, and then we get the data that we actually want. And apparently we haven't got the value we want, right? Unless I just can't see it at the moment for some reason. I don't think that's the case, right? But I know that I took, see, there's much less of an errors now. So we took out the markers, okay? So we shall save that. And as I said, this is my first couple of hours with Kantan graphs. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit. But you'll see what we get when I've actually got it working again. And apparently I've broken it. Not 100% sure how I've broken it, but I have broken it. Now, the other thing was, I did get an error earlier on when I completely crashed out. So, this is still accessing none. And it's set plot scale by range. Okay, so we have to get this, and we have to say is valid here. Okay. So that's going to take care of all our errors. But we still don't have a working graph, even though we did about half an hour ago. Now, this is bizarre, of course. So we step over that, step over that, step over that, step over. Oh, the source isn't right. So it looks to me like, yeah, it is. Or is it? No, that's right. That is right. Very interesting. Okay. I mean, we don't need to actually even do the connection to, yeah. So we're not going to have a graph at this point, right? We can resume that. Right, but what we can do is we can do our graph, right? And it's going to break there. Now the issue here is it looks as if this isn't being set. And it says none. Which is completely bizarre because it's set up here. Right? So I tell you what we'll do is we shall cut this. And yeah, we can't do a construction because it's basically a component. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this back in. Right? And I'm going to put a delay. Of 0.2 seconds. And then we're going to do our thing. Okay? And then we're going to check these values. Right. So we come in here. Right. Now our controller has now done our Kantan graph. And that is right. Right, so we have a Kantan graph. We can resume that. Okay. There's something weird going on here. This is getting set back to none. How can this be none? Right. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new one, right? So we're going to say production data source, okay, and it's Kantan simple Cartesian data source, okay. And then in here I'm going to say new. So we're just going to recreate all this, right? Because sometimes when, as I said, I had a crash earlier, so things might have went awry. So we'll do simple Cartesian data source, right? And then we'll plug it in here. Then we'll add series with ID. Then we'll say bauxite. Now these are going to be created automatically from all the different products, but in the first instance we're going to do it manually. So this is going to go in here, okay. And then we're going to come back down here. We're going to drag this in. Then we're going to plug it in here. And we're going to plug it in here. And we're going to check if this data source here is actually something. Now it should be. Okay. So we want to go to here and check to see if this is something. So we can add the breakpoint. I couldn't give two hoots if the iPhone 26 launched. I've not had a mobile phone in about 12 years. Right, so that's something. So if we step over, this is our new data source. Then that's going to be none because it isn't set yet. Right, so that is something. Then if we resume, it is going to fail. Right, now the interesting thing is we get to here, and then we get to here. Now, is this something? Yes, it is. And we're going to disable that, resume, and we're going to disable that, then we're going to disable that, and we're going to resume. Okay, we're going to get rid of our graph for the moment. Then we're going to join this up so that our miner can start producing again. Okay, so that's going to start producing again. And our graph ain't doing anything. Now, it obviously knows what these values are, right? Because it's up at 22, and that's like the maximum. And then that's the maximum value that it's getting out of there. So there's something here that's not happening, right? It's not drawing the graph for some reason. And I can only assume right? So there's something happening. Right, it's because of that. Right, I'm going to have to assume it's because of that. Right, because these are all done properly. We're definitely got a value in there, right? Okay. And again, it's definitely working, but this is weird. No errors there. So I can only assume that this part is still failing. Right? So this is definitely the right thing. These numbers are definitely right. Yeah, it's making a bit of a racket. I actually thought about switching off before I started. Right, so give me a second, I'll switch off. Okay, peace and quiet. Right, so it looks to me like we've got a problem in here. And it's because we've screwed up here. And this should be production data source. right? And this is all garbage, by the way. This was all from a simpler version of doing that. But we may go back to it, but we may not. So, I'm hoping that I have fixed all the issues. Hi, Bondale Alpha F. Elf? Where'd the elf come from? Bondale F. How are you doing? Right, so back to the problem. And hopefully back to the solution, which was to basically recreate it after that crash. Okay. And we've got our data. We've got that. So that's all okay. And yet, it isn't working. Okay, let's make things a bit quicker, and then this should shoot up faster. Which it has, but it's still not drawing the line on the graph, which is a bit rubbish. Which it was earlier, so this is really strange. Right, so we don't want draw points, but we want draw lines. Right, and we'll straighten all this out to be more like what we normally do. Okay. That's okay. That's okay. Right. I wasn't expecting to have this problem because it was all working and I just wanted to do some fun stuff, but things seem to have went to crap. So we're going to enable breakpoint there. We're going to save that. Wait a minute, tell you what. We're going to start a new game. Because there might be the fact that I might have actually saved that game, which has thrown it off. Okay. So I'm just wondering if this saved game has like just warped its mind. Right, so we've definitely got that. So step over that, and that's true, so we're okay. Everything else seems to be okay. Right, now have I spelled bauxite wrong or something? Is it something ridiculous like that? Well, yeah, there we go. There we go, guys. We have our graph. Okay? We have a graph. Now, at the moment, this graph is cumulative, right? So, this is one of the things that we need to change, right? Because this is cumulative, we need to actually set the scale to be different. Okay? And we need to set the data points to be different as well. We need to set it to give it the previous number of what we had, right? So that we can work out what it is on so on the timeline. Say we're producing 5, right? Now here's the fun part, right? If I add workers to our miner, right, this graph is suddenly going to shoot up, right? Because we're suddenly producing basically 1 per second, right? Instead of 1 every 10 seconds or whatever it was, right? So you can see now that our graph is looking great, right? I don't know, can you guys see that okay? Tell me if you guys can see this okay. Right, anyway, so the point is, we have a graph of production, okay? Now, the interesting part is when we go to our component counter, right? We're going to tidy this up first, okay? We'll get this source out of the way, and we'll delete that. Yeah, we do want to delete that. Do you actually have? No, I didn't think you had any actual references. The little fibber. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start moving this stuff about so that number one, it looks a bit better, number two, it's a bit more organized, right? So we'll move this down to here, right, and let's get things on the road here. Right, we're going to keep this away a bit because this is going to change. What we're going to do is we're going to be getting certain values, and we're going to be setting certain values up. So what we're going to be doing is, when we set up all the different series of data, we're going to set them up into arrays, and we're going to index them, and we're going to set up the indexes as variables so that we can actually quickly grab the correct values, so that we don't need to iterate through every single value. Okay, so that is kind of the plan here. And in the meantime, we're going to have to set up what I had earlier, which was a temporary storage where we calculate out what the current values are instead of the cumulative values are, right? So yeah, from that we're making the quantity, right? So that's fine. Okay, so this can go down here a bit, then basically this can go here. Now this makes a bit more sense. Okay, so in the first instance, we're going to have running totals, okay? But we're going to have running totals for each section of what we've done, right? So basically what I'm saying there is, we're going to calculate the running total. Then basically what we're going to do is we're going to pass that value in here, and then we're going to reset it, okay? So we're actually not going to append it. Now we are going to keep this count just now, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to get that, then we're going to do that, okay? And right, so we can't do that. What we need to do right, so what we need to do is we're doing each of these, right? And then we're going to set the quantity so it's going to be the quantity, oh we need to break that, sorry. Right, so we need to break that. We'll get this out of the way. Okay, so we need to break this. And we need to take the product count. So we're going to get that, right? Then we're going to get a copy of this. And we're going to take the same index, right? And then we're going to give ourselves some space here, right? I always tell everybody that I'm teaching anything in Unreal Engine to give themselves plenty space. Okay? Plenty space, guys. So we're going to break this one. And then we're going to say quantity minus, except that's equals, minus this quantity will go in here. Okay? And just so we're not confused totally by what's going on, we'll move this out the way since it's the same colour, which could get confusing if we weren't to do that. And then what we can do is we can move this to here, so that's a bit clearer in what we're doing. Okay. And then from our running totals is what we're going to get, where we're going to get this from. Okay. So we're going to delete that. We're going to delete that. We're going to move these back to where they were because it's all working now. Okay. And update the graph. We aren't going to update the graph. Okay. We're going to reset the totals. Okay, so every 5 seconds we're going to reset totals. Okay. So then we're going to reset the totals. Okay. Or not. I'm having to think about this one. How we do this. Right, so we can delete that. And it's kind of like we need to do this, the same thing again, except we need to add it to the running totals, right? So basically what we can do is we can come in here, and if it doesn't exist, we add it to both of these, right? So what we do is we come here and we make sure it's in running totals as well. I'm doing this by the seat of my pants, guys, so excuse me if things go a bit awry. Okay. So we add it to there as well, and then we add this as well to here, and we save that. Okay. Then we come back to here and we get our running totals, and we basically do exactly the same thing here. Right? Except we don't do this. Right? Okay. What we do is we get a copy basically from this index here, and then we do this. Control copy, control paste. Then we can paste this in here. Right? Then we put this in here. And the index is going to be this one, and the target array is going to be this. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're keeping two totals, right? We're keeping an overall total, okay, and then we're keeping a running total for the last period of time that we've got set up here, right? Then when we reset the totals, right, we don't need to do any of that stuff. All we need to do is set the quantity to 0. Okay, so we can delete all that stuff. Okay, now under normal circumstances here, this is going to actually loop through these, but we don't need to, and it's not going to be product count, right? It's going to be running totals. So all we're doing is basically resetting all of these things back to 0 for the quantity. Okay, that is the purpose here. and we're setting the timestamp back to 0. I don't think it actually does it matter for that. Well, I don't know, but we'll soon find out. Right. Now, before we do that, we're going to tell it to send the data. Right. So we basically update graph. Right. So in here we say update graph. Okay. So just let's see to make sure that we're doing the right thing here. So we're not using this, right? We're actually using running totals. Okay. And then we just make sure that we're getting the right stuff here, which we are. Okay. Yep. That's cool. So what we're doing is, to go through the logic of this, every 5 seconds, right, we reset the totals, right? We update the graph to send, so we send it the data, and then we clear out all the data, right? Now, when we process something, we add it to here, the total cumulative, and also to the running total, right? So this is going to basically go 0, 1, 2, then get reset back to 0. 0, 1, 2, get back, reset back to 0, and then that data, once it, just before it gets reset, is going to be sent off to the graph. Okay, so in theory, this should work a treat. Okay, so let's try this out, shall we? So we're going to do one, and then once we've finished one, we'll start with another. Okay, and then we'll ramp it up to basically all the products on the graph. Okay, you're not going to do what I think you're going to do, are you? It is. It's going to crash. Oh no. Okay, so Kantan graphs is not exactly very stable. Well, unbelievable. Well, that's a bit of a bummer. That has really got on my goat. Well, that certainly knows how to piss me off. Well, at least it didn't do the old hang for 10 minutes. Now, the question is it going to screw up? And everything else? We don't need that open. Right. So I wonder if it's going to crash again, or if it's just not going to set up the correct things here, or what it's going to do under the circumstances. So I guess we're going to have to put a breakpoint in to find out. Right, so are you going to do something or not? That's the question. Apparently it is. And I think it's just crashed again. Yeah, apparently so. Well, that's kind of awesome, isn't it? So we basically have Kantan graphs basically screwing us over here, which is awesome, obviously. Now, I had used this very briefly before, and I don't know if it was because it was crashing that I stopped using it or not, but it's certainly doing causing a lot of issues here. But, yeah. A bit of a pain. Funny thing was, we were working on this earlier, and it never crashed once. Right, but now it seems to just want to crash all the time. Okay. And it wants to put my windows over on the other screen and do all sorts of weird crap. Now I'm going to add breakpoint there. Right, now it did seem to be when I actually created It was only when I made the this that it started having its moments. Right, so we've got a breakpoint in here as well. Okay. So we're gonna have to tie this one down and find out what the heck is going on. Now, I'm just wondering actually if there's no data. If we try and send the data and there's no data. Right, that would actually make sense. Right, so let's have a look at this, right? And what we can do is yeah, we can check this, right? So we can get product count, right? And we can branch it. Sorry, we can length. Okay. And if the length is greater than 1, greater than 0, then we can do that. If not, we don't do anything, right? Because basically we've nothing to reset at all. Okay. So we can branch this. Now, what we'll actually have to do in this case is send it a special signal to say basically 0, 0, right? But we'll have to work out what we're going to do with that at the time. But that's going to be like a special case. Okay, so we've stopped it doing that, and we're going to test it once we come back from a 2-minute break. So stick around, guys. Hit the subscribe button. Check out the description while I'm gone, but it's not going to be a long time, so back soon. Don't go anywhere. Okay guys, we're back and ready to go at this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I save all, and then right now if I hit the graph, okay, we are okay with that. Now we need to know if this actually succeeds or not. True. Okay. So that's cool. That's cool. Okay, because we haven't crashed this time. Okay. So now what we can do is we can do our probe. And we can build our container. Okay. Now we can build our conveyor belt. Except we need to turn this round first. Well, we don't really need to turn it round, but makes it a bit easier. Okay. So now, if we bring this up and resume, it crashes. Okay. Well, this isn't very successful, is it? So there must be something that's causing an issue when we actually update the data, or we try to send it the data. Okay, so we're going to need to check what our data says when we actually run it. And we're not going to send it to the chart. We are just going to check what the value is. On the first attempt. Okay, and then once we do that, we can see what the problem is. Okay, or at least that's the idea. It's definitely something to do with sending data through that's causing a problem, right? Because you'll notice that when there was no data, it was fine, right? So the problem is with the first set of data. Is this going to open them another screen again? Yep. Okay, so if we go back to here, and we add a breakpoint here. And I'm kinda guessing here that this value, the values coming out of here are nothing, right? So I'm going to add a breakpoint here, and then we're going to run our game again, and we're going to see what the goddamn issue is. And I'm kind of thinking that this could actually be a save game issue. I wonder if EMS is doing a weird, if it's doing some sort of an autosave, right? If there's an autosave time and that's saving it and it's causing me problems, I'm wondering if it's something to do with that as well, right? So that's the wife coming home, so the dog is about to go off its nut. Right, so what we'll do is we'll join these up. And I'm going to guess that it's not going to fail yet. So that's okay. We have our target and we have our range. Okay, so if we step, oh, well. Okay guys, sorry about that. As I said, when the wife comes home after about 2 minutes out, the dog acts as if she's been away for 25 years. Anyway, not to worry. He's just been a dog, I suppose. So I am guessing that, right, I kind of know what the problem is. If we don't have a value for this, if the value is 0, then we still need a range, right? So basically we're going to have to do a range value that we can manipulate, so that when if indeed for some reason we've got a 0 value, then what we can do is we can actually use a default value. Okay, so that is exactly what we're going to do. So if we come back into here, I thought I was going to do something there. So for our quantity, right, which is going in here, right, we're going to have to clamp this. This is the best way to do it. So the minimum is going to be 5. And can you just clamp a minimum? Right, I suppose what we can do is say like we can just write a little stupid function to do this, right? So we can just return min, okay, and we bring in a float, min integer max. Well, we'll just say out. Right, both of these are a float. Are they? Are they both a float? No? Well, yeah, they are, so. Okay. So basically we just say if minimum is less than if it's less than 5, and then we branch that, and some kid's not very happy, and we're having all the funny lives. Try. So if it's less than 5, we out 5. And if it's false, we basically don't bring up the Windows menu. What we do is we return the minimum value, right? And then we just make that pure, compile, go back to our event graph, then we return this, and we plug this in here and in here. And that should sort the issue out. So the minimum can never be less than 5. Okay. And then we can basically do some fancy stuff after the fact. And yeah, having neighbours is fun. Right, so what we'll do is we shall make our storage container. They'll do. So I guess what we should do is we should test that. Everything's still okay. Okay. And we need to do that. Okay. And we'll speed this up a little bit so at least we're getting something. And we're getting 2. Which is kind of awesome. And if we press another couple of L's, now we're getting our graph. And the interesting thing here is if we now build another one, right? So we can basically build another one of these and another storage container. Okay. Okay. So we can spin this around and check that it works. Okay. So now we can do a couple of L's, then hit our button. And look at that. So we are currently getting a very nice graph. Now, the next thing we need to do is work out the scale and get the scale into something that we can work with. Okay. But as you can see for that, guys, that is working very well indeed. So now all we need to do is start adding other sort of values, and we can take it from there. So the idea here is we can do the graph of production, right? Quantity. And we can do the time, right? So basically, if we stop that, right, and then we save it, then we stop it. So what we want to actually do here, right, is our quantity basically should be this. Multiplied by, let's say, 1.2. Right? So that's going to give us a number that's above, so that our graph isn't hitting top all the time. Right, now we aren't saving conveyor belts for some reason, or they aren't getting put back down, but that's okay for now. We won't worry too much about that. So we start that back up, then we can start this back up. Okay. And now we should be able to hit our G. And as you can see, that gives us a number there. Right. So that's working okay. Right. And on that, guys, if you've enjoyed the stream, hit the subscribe button. Check out the description for the Discord, the Patreon, and my previous game on Steam. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 2 PM Central. Bye bye for now.